Today I'm really delighted to welcome Radhika Shagroven. She has written two very inspiring books. One is Mastering Pranayama, where she describes from going from breathing techniques to Kundalini awakening. And the other one, her latest book, is on the Yoga Sutras called Yoga Sutras Illuminated. And it's quite a unique commentary where there are a lot of illustrations and tables which makes this very terse subject comes to life. Through her, through the last years, she has built up a wonderful international online presence. She has many students from all over the world, and she inspires aspirants to rediscover their inner peace and also simply find a way to go inside. For that purpose, she has built up a signature mentoring path called the Self-Realization Program, SRP, which is like a lifelong transformational training for students. Okay, so let's go right in with the first question.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for having me.
When we have deeper moments, questions come up like, who am I? Why am I here? What is death? Where will I go when I die? These are all very profound questions, and they are signs of human existence and also evolution. They are universal, yet why do so many of us lose touch with them?
Well, the answer is very simple, Joe. The fact is that the habit patterns take over. When we are young, as children, let's think of children around the age of 5, very innocent. They observe nature around them, they observe the stars. They also see the complexities of our daily lives. And this allows them to contemplate. They ask these profound questions quite naturally. And when they reflect, these questions become quite overwhelming and they seek answers to these. This provides a foundation for a deep spiritual life. However, what has happened in our modern lives, already young children are glued to devices. They are under a great deal of pressure in our modern education system. They have to be prepared by the parents for the stresses of a very competitive career already at a very young age. So this leaves very little room for contemplation and reflection. So this foundation is not built up any longer. Instead, you have habit patterns of looking around, comparing oneself, imitation, and takes away this natural, reflective mind that we have and creates patterns, mind patterns that are not very healthy and not very useful. When we talk about this dialogue or this reflection, I'm referring to internal dialogue, not something we have externally with others, but a kind of a self knowledge, questioning ourselves. So it's an internal dialogue. Also, it is not a monologue. It doesn't mean I'm just talking to myself, you know, like the proverbial crazy person who's kind of talking to themselves. And when we speak to ourselves but are listening, observing, then it is no longer a monologue. When we seek to know ourselves, it is a dialogue. And this internal dialogue is the very basis of meditation. We say, in fact, one doesn't start with meditation, you start with internal dialogue. That is the very foundation of practices leading to self-knowledge.
That sounds like a beautiful practice. VICHARA, or internal dialogue, is described, as I understand, in many ancient texts,
Indeed.
from the Upanishads to the Yoga Sutras. Yet, it remains relatively unknown. Why do you think this is the case? Can you give us a broad overview of its origin?
Well, the practice is as ancient as humanity itself. From the times we were living simple lives in caves and mountains and near the river, we observed nature. We watched the river flowing and felt the flow of life. We watched the mountain and felt the strength and the power in our own selves. When we looked at the stars, we felt the presence of the divine. And when we experienced these things, internal dialogue was a natural and profound practice that existed in all spiritual traditions throughout the world. It is not unique to yoga, it is not unique to Indian Hindu traditions, it is not just an Oriental practice. It is practiced, or was at least initially practiced, in all the deeper spiritual traditions of the world, whether it was in the African or the Aborigines of Australia, whether it was the ancient European Celtic traditions, the native traditions of North and South America, and of course in all the other world religions as we know, whether it is Judaism, Christianity, Islam, or naturally all the offshoots of Hinduism, such as Buddhism. So the origins are ancient and the practice is universal. And however, due to the stresses of our modern life, we have forgotten them. We have forgotten this gorgeous, wonderful practice, which is actually so much a part of our deepest self.
So, is there a final answer to the question, who am I? Or is the question itself the point?
Well, I would say yes to both. Of course, there is an answer to the question, who am I? And yes, it is the point to ask itself. The journey and not the goal is really the most profound aspect. So while we ask ourselves these questions, we gain self knowledge. We also find we get to know the mind at different layers, different aspects of ourselves. We get to plunge into the depths of our mind and we know different parts of ourselves, whether it's the physical self, it's the self which is related to the energy, the breath, the mental aspect, as well as the most deepest spiritual aspect of ourselves.
So, for somebody entirely new to Vichara, how would you begin the practice? What is the first small step or the small steps they could take to begin an internal dialogue?
Well, I think the most important part is to understand the four aspects of the mind. There are four main players in the mind. And when we, even though it may be intellectual, it is important to understand these four players. The first one being manas. Manas is that part of ourselves which is related to the senses. It's coordinating the external and the internal worlds that we live in. And we live in two worlds. We live in this world outside, and we have our internal world as well. And there's one aspect of the mind that coordinates these two, and this is called manas. Then there is the other aspect called buddhi. Buddhi is our clear awareness. This is the part which is not colored with certain ideas or habit patterns which are deeply ingrained. Then there's ahankara. Ahankara, which is very often painted as the bad guy, is in fact nothing other than our different identities. We have many little identities and we relate to ourselves through through these identities with the world around us. So I, for example, have an identity of teacher. of a spiritual teacher. You, on the other hand, Joe, have also an identity of a manager working in a corporation, in a corporate environment. There are people having identities as lawyers or doctors, but this is not just about your profession. You have identities as do I, as a mother, as a daughter, as a sister, as a sibling, and as a neighbor. So these are certain roles that we play. But we have other identities as well, such as, oh, I'm smart, or I'm dumb, or I am beautiful, or I'm ugly. And we relate to the world through these identities. And this is what ahankara is, basically different identities. And finally, the biggie, the big one is chitta. This is our memory bank. And that's where we store all our experiences, all our feelings, all our emotions, memories. And these memories can be very ancient. They can go back to different lifetimes if we are aware of them. And this is also the part that will then carry us to another lifetime, if we believe in that. So to start with internal dialogue, or as it is traditionally called in the Vedic scriptures, Atma Vichara, begins just with some experiments. You get to know a few simple experiments, and that's how we can begin to know ourselves. If you'd like, we can run a short, quick experiment right now.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, if you just close your eyes shortly, I'll
Yes.
ask a question which you ask your own mind. And the question that you can ask your mind right now, and watch the answer. It could come in a word or as an image, and answer immediately. What is your favorite animal? Which animal do you like or feel attracted to? What was the image or word that came to you? You can open your eyes now.
It was a lion.
A lion. Oh, okay. Did you see the lion as an image, or was it a word which came to you as a sound?
It was an image with the mane in the winds. It was standing on a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a beautiful image. There was the sun behind that. It was maybe a sunset. It was not so clear, but it was a beautiful light.
Yeah.
The lion was standing in the winds.
Okay, so a very powerful image. And you can see how your mind was giving you some information. Now, this is, of course, a very, very simple way of starting when I begin teaching my students this practice, but this can become also extremely complex. So you can see these are the first steps, just by simple experiments. And for viewers and listeners, I'll provide a short PDF with a link with a PDF with some of these kind of questions which they can experiment with.
Thank you so much for these illustrations also, and involving also. We had a really, really great experience. It is common in spiritual circles that they refer to the mind as the monkey mind. What are your views on this? Would you recommend this approach?
Definitely not. Absolutely not. The mind is, in fact, the only instrument we have. We use it all the time. It is so important. It is really the only thing we have, other than, of course, the body. The mind and body are actually one. So if I'm condemning the mind as a monkey mind, as a troublemaker, for example, then basically I'm condemning myself. And if I condemn my instruments, my tools, then with what tools shall I work? What we need to do is quite the opposite. We need to befriend the mind. Imagine you see a stranger. Maybe you are sitting at the dentist practice, waiting for your turn, and while you're sitting there, there are a couple of other people sitting there as well, waiting. And you look at somebody and you see how we are when you don't know somebody. Very often you have certain prejudices, certain ideas, and you think, oh, this person looks strange, this person looks so foreign and so unfamiliar, or this person looks fat or is ugly or looks, oh, look at the funny outfit he's worn, or whatever. And when we see this person like this person is a stranger to us, he or she is foreign. But when you make the trouble of just saying hello, smile a bit, and then maybe find something common. Maybe you begin by talking about the weather. Oh, today is such a wonderful day, and maybe I'm planning to go for a walk later after the appointment, or you just have a harmless little chat about the dentist, which you have in common, obviously. And when you find some common topics, you find that this person is no longer a stranger. Maybe you find even that you know somebody in common. Maybe you find that you both went to the same school, maybe at different times, but you went to the same school, or you come from the same area somewhere, and and it's so nice and so wonderful when suddenly the stranger maybe doesn't become a friend immediately, but becomes something familiar. It is exactly how we want to relate with the mind. The mind appears to be strange and foreign because we don't know it. But when we take the effort to get to know ourselves, become familiar with the mind, you realize the mind is not such a spooky, foreign, weird, monkey like troublemaker of all those terms that we like to, think of ourselves well as sometimes. And as we continue to befriend our mind and we get to know the depths of our mind, we can coordinate those four main aspects that I mentioned earlier, the four players. And when we can coordinate these like a team, it's teamwork then, they become your friends and they will help you in all aspects of life, internal as well as external.
Many people say their mind feels like a battlefield. And how can Vichara transform that experience into something more harmonious?
Well, we need to begin with simple experiments. Get to know ourselves in a very small way, just like we did this little experiment of which animal do you like, what animal do you find attractive, and you came up with the lion. You had a whole image, the lion, the mane, and his mane blowing in the wind. Beautiful image. And similarly, when you begin these little experiments, and I mentioned that I will provide a PDF, a link to a PDF that our viewers can also take up each of these little questions that they can quietly in a corner in the morning, for example, when it's quiet, reflect on these questions in a very simple, easy manner, without any pressure, without any expectation either. You see, the mind is very deep and very complex. So if you go at this exercise with stress, with ego, with pressure, you're not likely to succeed. But if you approach it in a very creative manner, in a very relaxed manner, and enjoy it, have fun with it, then it will begin to reveal itself. And that is a very, very exciting time. And this is also one of the reasons why it is one of my resolutions to revive this practice, this lost practice, this ancient practice, universal practice must be revived.
You repeatedly emphasize befriending the mind instead of controlling it.
Yes.
And why do you think this is more effective? And can you maybe also give us some examples of how internal dialogue has helped you and also your students in real life situations?
Oh, certainly, certainly. Yes, it's important to befriend the mind as opposed to try to control it. Control does not work. We cannot really control our mind. The mind is far too powerful to be controlled. When we try to control the mind, what happens is either suppression, it leads to suppression, which can eventually lead either only to a kind of an explosion or implosion. I say explosion is when the suppressions become too much. For example, you're in an uncomfortable situation in your workplace and you keep suppressing all the situations that you're going through, and you accept things, swallow things. At some point of time, you can't take it anymore and you explode, which means maybe you get angry, you react strongly, you become temperamental, moody, or you implode. Implode means that you keep taking all that stress, taking all these unpleasantries of life, and then it goes deep inside you in your mind, makes you very, very sick. Chronic disease has its root in unresolved suppressions, conflicts of the mind. And so neither one is healthy, neither implosion nor explosion. So suppressions or controlling the mind is not healthy. What we try to do is coordinate these four aspects of the mind, befriend the mind, and direct the mind. And that works miracles. I have students with me who have been with me for over 10 years, who have been working with this. And I myself have been practicing this for over 30 years. And I can say that this has become a part of my daily life all the time. And it has helped me in many ways. A simple way I can say, for example, is when I started this practice, when I started getting to know this practice, I had a backache because I was sitting in meditation for quite some time. And I had to start off with my mind. The mind offered me a visual. And with the help of this visual, I was able to heal this backache. Within moments, I did not have to take any kind of medication to deal with the pain. And that was actually just within a few months of learning this practice. However, I would not encourage people to have very high expectations when they start this practice. I was in an environment then with my teacher, living also in what is called a yoga ashram, and I was there for quite a few months. So I had the privilege of very close mentorship, guiding me at that time and doing it full time at that point of time. So when you start this, initially, don't have many great expectations. We need time to befriend the mind, to learn to coordinate the mind. And when that happens, over time, my students have gone through situations where, for example, they had problems sleeping at night. They would wake up at night and were unable to go back to sleep. And they were able to use internal dialogue to convince their mind to go back to sleep. Because sleep is important, sleep is therapeutic. And they were able to convince the mind to go back to sleep. Or I even had somebody, and this is quite amazing, a student who has been practicing for over 20 years or maybe even 25, and has now really beginning to get really into the advanced stages of internal dialogue. And he was able to cure himself of snoring that had been bothering him and his family, in fact, for years. And well, the doctors and the specialists were lost for words. I finally said, when he was so desperate, I said, why don't you try internal dialogue? Why don't you convince your mind that the snoring is causing a lot of disturbance for you during your sleep? And when he tried it out, it really helped. It didn't happen overnight, but over a period of weeks or months, and it was finally gone because he believed in it as well. Yeah. And so these are some of the ways we can use internal dialogue to do some self-healing, but it can be also used in many other situations as we get more and more proficient in the practice. It can help us in every aspect of our life. For example, it can help you in negotiations when you're at your work, or it can help a student, who is appearing for an exam and has to deal with anxiety, or nervousness. So all these aspects, every aspect, in fact, of life can be, transformed with the use of internal dialogue over a longer period of time. No high expectations, enjoy the practice, see this as something which is going to be a part of your life forever.
Thank you, Radhikaji. This was really wonderful to revive all of these old techniques which have been there for thousands of years, and making it also so practical. That is something I really like, that we can integrate this really into our life. And of course, I'm sure you would like to encourage everybody to try it out.
Yes.
And to find out that you have 4 best friends inside, and say hello to them, as soon as possible. All right. So you mentioned a couple of times before, though, there is a link down, PDF to internal dialogue.
Yes.
So check that out. It's in the description. And so we are signing off now. Thanks again for these wonderful insights. There will be a follow-up, part 2. It's coming soon. And please stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.